Today, I kind of want to give you a little bit of assurance that if you get lost in the kerfuffle of what's going on right now, and the IRS were to make a mistake with your case, just because they say it's so doesn't mean that everything is over. You have the right to appeal. People almost always disagree on different tax matters that deal with the IRS in their rulings and how the system may affect them.
Welcome to the Tax Relief with Timalyn Bowens podcast. Are you behind on taxes? Is the IRS threatening you or your business? Are you overwhelmed and confused about how to resolve your tax issues? Let's join Timalyn as she explains your options and how she may be able to help. Timalyn Bowens is America's favorite EA.
Hey, family. Welcome to episode 60 of the Tax Relief with Timalyn Bowens podcast. It is so mind-blowing and hard for me to believe that we started this journey together with the Tax Relief with Timalyn Bowens podcast 3 years ago. April of 2022, I had absolutely no idea what this podcast would turn out to be. So here, shooting episode 60, I just want to say thank you to the listeners for tuning in every other week for what, 50 episodes straight? Was that it? 50 episodes straight. I took a little break and I was worried earlier this year when I came back that you all may not come back with me. And you all proved all my worries to be wrong. You all came right back with me, and I just want to say thank you. I appreciate that. Now, we have some crazy stuff going on in our country, specifically within the tax world. We have the Tax Cut and Job Act, which was signed into law under the Trump administration in 2017. That was the biggest tax overhaul since the Reagan administration. Fast forward to 2025, the provisions of that tax overhaul are set to expire by December of 2025. So now we have Congress, we have the House, we have the Senate. They're working on trying to figure out what they are going to let expire within the Tax Cut and Job Act, what they are going to extend, and then what they are going to add. With the cuts that took place within the IRS earlier this year, some of you all are worried, and I addressed that worry about whether or not the IRS is going away in last episode, episode 59. Today, I kind of want to give you a little bit of assurance that if you get lost in the kerfuffle of what's going on right now, and the IRS were to make a mistake with your case, just because they say it's so doesn't mean that everything is over. You have the right to appeal. People almost always disagree on different tax matters that deal with the IRS in their rulings and how the system may affect them. You don't have to go all the way to tax court to dispute something with the IRS. Instead, the IRS actually has an appeal department. Now, you may be thinking, all right, they're just doing that, to make themselves look good. They're just going to side with themselves. But no, listen, the Internal Revenue Service appeal department is actually an independent office of appeals. And this is what they use to resolve tax disputes without litigation. Now, the reason that it's separate is so that they can provide fair and impartial judgment to both the government and the taxpayer. Now, you may be thinking, but if it's still the IRS, it's not separate. But listen, it is. These are not going to be the same revenue officers who may be breathing down your neck to collect, right? These are not going to be the same people who work within the automated collection system who just put the levy on your account. No, these are going to be individuals that only work within the appeal department, and they are going to take a look at your case with a fresh set of eyes and without the bias that the revenue officer or agent that you've been working with have. Okay? Now, this is going to benefit the IRS because this is going to be more affordable and cost efficient than if every taxpayer took them to court, right? So, if you are the taxpayer, you disagree with maybe the IRS levied you and you were attempting to get things situated, they didn't follow the collection of due process, even within the process. In the Bill of Rights that you have as a taxpayer, you have the right to appeal. So if you disagree with that levy, if they made an adjustment to your tax return or they filed a lien and you don't agree with it, you can appeal that action to the IRS Independent Office of Appeals. Okay. Now, the individual, remember, it's not going to be the revenue officer that's been breathing down your neck. It's not going to be the revenue agent that you dealt with. Instead, you'll work with an independent appeals officer or a settlement officer. Now, they're going to take your side of the story and they're going to see what the good points are and the parts that are kind of weak to see who is really right in this situation. Now, they're not going to take into consideration your religion, your political affiliation. So if you voted for the current administration, that's not going to be a plus or minus for you. They're not looking to see if you have any conscientious objection or similar grounds. They're just looking at the facts of the case. And the goal is to provide you a space to work with the IRS and resolve the tax dispute. Now, with me being an enrolled agent, I can represent people such as yourself in the appeal process. Now, am I the only professional that can? No, a CPA can, a tax attorney can as well. But this is another distinction of where I want to point out how an enrolled agent is different. Because it is a federal license and the highest one that the IRS awards to tax professionals, you may not need to hire a tax attorney if you have an enrolled agent, because within the appeal process, let's say if you were to work with me, I would take the facts of your case and I would take them to this meeting with the appeal or settlement officer and I would give them your side of the case. Now, because I have experience doing this, because I have access to certain parts of the Internal Revenue Manual, I know what their objections are going to be. I know from working with you what you're already up against with the IRS officer or agent that you've been going back and forth with. So I'm already prepared for their rebuttals as well. Okay. So typically in this process, when you say that you want to do an appeal, they reach out to set up the appeal meeting with you. Okay. A lot of times this is simply going to be over the phone. And because they want to have a fresh set of independent eyes that take a look at the case, they're Commitment in this is to be fair and impartial. Okay? They're going to listen to your concerns that, again, me as an enrolled agent, I can share with them. They're going to be courteous and professional. That's supposed to be a commitment that revenue officers and agents share as well, but that's not always the case. But here they make sure to go above and beyond that. They will also explain your appeal rights and the appeal process. They're committed to being responsive. Now, I will give a disclaimer here. With all of the reduction in force actions, budget cuts, those types of things, their response time in being responsive may take a little bit longer. Okay. And then let's say that they are agreeing with you, but we don't have that third party documentation to substantiate the claims that you are making. They are committed to allowing you reasonable time to respond to any request for information. Okay? That seems straightforward, but within this situation, you may want to team with a professional. With doing an appeal, you still have the right to representation. So you can have a Form 2848 filled out by an enrolled agent such as myself, a CPA, or a tax attorney to guide you through the appeal process or to handle it for you. Because the same way they have commitments, you have responsibilities as well. You have to actually listen to the explanation of the appeals process, and that is their check of the box to make sure that you understand it. You'll need to submit a statement that includes a list of all the IRS positions that you disagree with. And I'll let you know right now, I don't owe this is not a position, right? You have to be able to substantiate that and show why you don't on paper. Taxes are a different language in and of themselves, right? Which is why, again, you don't have to, but you may want to consider having representation in this, okay? It's also your responsibility to assist the appeal officer with accurately and promptly resolving this issue. They're there to help you, but they're not going to give you a year to get the information that you're looking for, right? They still got to move it along. So if we look at publication 4227, they share, and this, when I say they, is the IRS Office of Independent Appeals, that their vision is to promote an independent and innovative environment that drives quality and timely resolution of tax disputes by empowering a highly skilled and motivated, cohesive workforce. Now, with that, because it's independent, they are not going to be engaging in communication with employees of other IRS departments, which means when you go to take your dispute and your grievances and appeal to them, you have to have a certain amount of understanding of tax law, which again, if you're a listener of this podcast, you know what I say. It doesn't have to be me, but get the help that you need, right? Because a lot of people see a decision from the IRS that they know is incorrect, but they don't utilize, they don't take advantage of their right as a taxpayer to appeal. They don't take advantage of their right as a taxpayer to representation to get the matter resolved. Okay? So while things right now may seem crazy with the IRS, while things right now may seem like you never get a response from the IRS when you try to call, when you respond to the notices, don't give up if you know that you are not in the wrong. Take advantage of your right as a taxpayer to file an appeal, get that independent set of eyes, and get your account cleared. Okay? The IRS still has to follow due process in any collection of money from you. The IRS still cannot put you into a financial hardship. Now, with that being said, remember to do your part and make sure that you are communicating with them about what you can and cannot afford. Make sure you are communicating with them about any income updates. Make sure you're communicating with them about when and how you're going to make payment if that is the solution that you and the IRS have come to. All right. Now, you know that you have the right to appeal. You know that you have the right to representation. If you still feel a little bit cloudy, and you still don't know, like, how's all this fit? What am I going to do with it? I want to invite you to one, subscribe to this podcast because I do lay that process out starting all the way at episode 1. And no, you don't have to listen to all 60 episodes. However, if you look at the titles of different episodes, I promise you'll find resources that you need to have a better understanding of your situation that you're dealing with the IRS right now. If you know that you need to get this taken care of, but it's not ideal for you to actually take care of it yourself, I want to invite you to book a call with me at www.bowenstaxsolutions.com. And if you're a good fit for us to work together, then I can represent you before the IRS in doing the appeal, getting something that is going to not bankrupt you, but also satisfy the IRS to make sure that we get them off your back. You don't end up with a levy. You're not in an undue financial hardship. Okay? But again, it doesn't have to be me, but just make sure you get the help you need. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen today. I'd like to thank Jim Ray Consulting Services for helping me get this message out to you. I hope you found the information helpful. Did you know 1 in 50 people have a tax problem? Please share this episode with your friends and family because you never know who may need help. Again, thanks for listening. Hey, just as a reminder, this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It provides a framework and possible solutions for solving your tax problems, but it is not legally binding. Please consult your tax professional regarding your specific tax situation.